So you've got a brilliant idea for a film or a television show, and it's awesome. It's going to be the coolest thing since sliced bread or MacGyver. But how do you actually get this made? You need a plan. That's what we're going to focus on. You really need a legitimate business plan to make sure that you're in the right direction and that this has legs to stand on. You need to do the planning up front before you commit. Even if you never show this business plan to anyone, the research is important so that you can do an internal greenlight process. If it's too hard for you to make the numbers work, that this isn't going to end up a problem and people are not going to watch this brilliant idea you have, and you're not going to be able to get it in front of people, and you're not going to be able to make back the production budget, stop. Get a different project. Then you also need a business plan if you're involving others. Investors are not going to take your word for it that this is going to be awesome. Studios may need to see your business plan. Networks may. If you go for bank financing, they definitely will. Completion bond companies will need to see it, and other forms of financing like grants sometimes need to see your business plan, guys. You do not want to leave things to chance. Making a movie or a television show or anything in film is, generally speaking, a pretty risky, expensive process. I speak from personal experience. Do not just dive in. Figure out your plan first. Make sure it will work. Well, make sure you have a good shot at it working. So we're going to go over a little bit of the basics of a business plan. We'll dive into each of these sections in depth. But basically, you're outlining the company's goals and plans for how you achieve them. So you'd include your mission and vision statements, how the company actually works, what you're offering, right? So this film, if you're making a business plan for a company that is a parent of multiple films, what are those films? What your market research says, your budget, your projections, the team, all of this stuff. It's usually about 10 to 15 pages long and often a lot of appendices with more information. So the executive summary. Beginning of your plan with the last thing you will actually write, because it's going to give you a high level summary. So things like the log line, who's going to watch this, a little bit on how you're going to market and distribute this, a little bit on the financial summary. This also might include what you really care about this, why you really care about this project. It's usually not more than 3 paragraphs or a page. Again, write it at the end. You're thinking about it as you work through the project, and the people need to read it. Don't leave things to mystery. They don't want to get a mystery. They want the information up front if they're going to bother to read your plan. It's also important for you to be able to summarize it for yourself. All right, so next section. And this is the general format for a film business plan intended for financing. There are fine tweaks on different film plans. Like if you're making a film plan that's really to pitch a show to a network, it's a little bit different because they have their own internal financial green lights, but they still want to see what the research is. And you got to kind of convince them sometimes that, hey, yes, this is a worthwhile project. But we're looking at this from the perspective of an independent film. So the company, that company mission and vision statement. Your structure, is it an LLC? What day was it incorporated? Is it yet to be incorporated? Who are the people? The bio on you. Why did you make the company? Why does it exist? That's what goes in this section. Number 3 is the film and show itself. So a little bit of a synopsis, genre, length, format. Again, don't make them guess. Nobody wants to have to extrapolate from your synopsis if it's an animation or live action. Is it a movie or a show? Is it a comedy or horror? Don't make them guess. If you have good key art, include it. Make sure you talk about what makes it unique and why you care. If you do have a full pitch Bible, we're not necessarily going to dive into that, but if you have one, you'd put it as an appendix. All right, section 4, the industry. You need to make sure your investors understand the nature of film investment and the high risk, but you also make sure you understand the nature of film investment. If you're writing this plan just for you, super important. If you are going to talk with anyone else about them investing in your film and you you need to be really confident and fully disclose what this is about. The markets. You're going to be doing a lot of market research and planning. If nobody is watching this kind of project, the idea that my brand new, totally original idea is going to make a splash, it's tough to sell, guys. It doesn't usually work that way. If nobody's done it, there's usually a reason. It's a fine line between being derivative of just, oh, this is a remash of these things, and being so unique it doesn't get anywhere. You're going to look at target market demographics, other projects that show it'll be successful, and financials. You'll get into that more with their financial success, but you might mention what those comparable projects are and some of the marketing strategies that you'll employ. In this business plan, they're going to want to see some very solid marketing strategies if you're pitching to investors. Distribution. We'll get into distribution a lot because it is so varied. The traditional theatrical, non-theatrical, streaming, ancillary revenues like product placement. We're going to get into all of those, but this is where you show where the money is going to come from and how you're going to distribute in these places. Financial plan. Risk factors are really important. You're going to have a variety of things in this, but basically it's your projections, your cash flow, what those comparable projects made so you can show the finances, if there are any incentives you plan on using. And I just always have to note this, you have to be careful on offers for investment in finances because of SEC regulation. So just be careful. Don't go selling shares to your project when you don't have SEC regulation. Then your appendices, they could include any of these things. So lots of materials can go in these. This is where it goes beyond that 10 to 15 pages, but are more materials people could read if they loved your business plan and want to know more. And it's a way to combine all your information in one place. Now, to design this, I actually just recommend using Microsoft Word unless you're great at InDesign. They have some clean built-in templates, so you can log in and get some templates to use. Look at their business plans. Make sure you check those out. You want it to look good. This should not look like an MLA paper. Do cite things at the end, possibly as an appendix if you have citations, but you do not want it to look like a paper. It needs to look like a business plan. So I want to touch on this a little bit because there are a lot of different pitching elements and things to prepare a project, right? So you have a pitch Bible that's in a book format, 8.5 by 11, that goes through the basis of your story. And if it is a series, it goes through a lot of things that set up what the series would look like. Who are the recurring characters? What are the show arcs? Stuff like that. For a film, it may be just the characters in the film and some of the arc and some of the things that are more look inspiration. Your pitch deck and presentation are in a slide format, so usually 16 by 9, and they'd be ready for you to give 5 to 10 minute presentation. 7 to 8 is pretty typical. Sometimes you'll only get 5 minutes, but it's the slide format. It's the pretty inspirational slides for you to talk about. One sheet leave behind, that's just one page of inspirational art and information and contact information so people don't forget about your project and can contact you. The business plan that we've talked about, that's more for the financials. If you have a sizzle reel or animatic, the video to tease what your project is about, those are great to have prepared. And a script. Now, this varies a lot. If you're pitching a series, you likely have a pilot script written and outlines of other things. You also may have no script written because you are only doing an initial pitch for a possibility of a show. For a film, it's very difficult to get through the initial hurdles of script writing if you're paying for development and need to hire a writer to work on the script. In the independent film world, frequently it starts with the script, that you have a producer, writer, director, writer who has a script that they have written through their own personal time without getting paid for it, that they've written totally on spec. Happens a lot. So it really varies. It is possible to pitch a project without a script. It's possible to pitch a project with a fully completed script. What gets tough is some of the attachments you need to move things forward until you have that script. Usually this happens in kind of a a Ripple format. You do your initial pitch and find out, is anybody even interested in this if I develop it? Okay, they are. So now you need to work on a script and either fundraise or get somebody or you yourself work on writing the script so that you can attach the people you need to move things forward. Then you go and do the next phases of things. So some of the behind the scenes things that are kind of implied for you to have those materials ready for an accurate business plan are the full script, because you can't get to a lovely budget unless you have an accurate schedule. For an accurate schedule, you need accurate breakdowns based on your script. Now, you might come up with this beautiful breakdown schedule budget that end up with a $10 million film, and what you get greenlit for and are able to raise is $5 million, and then you go and revise and find a way to cut it down. But generally speaking, the first phase is script, breakdown, schedule, budget. So that you're actually figuring out what the real cost is. And then you figure out where trims need to happen. Like, all right, we're just not going to be able to pay for enough days. We're going to have to cut back some days. So what do we need to adjust in the script so we don't have safety issues, abuse people, or have poor production quality for shooting too quickly and not having enough crew. So you've got to look at those things in kind of a ripple effect. Now, that's a lot of work. You're going to do a lot of that as a student to practice doing things, even if they're not going to get greenlit, but you would probably not go through the full breakdown, schedule, budget process. For an initial proposal, before you go get real money, you're going to need those things. So you will do it for real and probably work with a line producer on it. The other things you absolutely will need are agreements, your intellectual property ownership, who wrote it. If it's you, great. If it's not you, do you have permission? Who is it based on? Somebody's life story and they're alive? Is it based on a book, an adaptation? You can't just go adapting things and thinking that it'll be okay. Is it public domain? Do you know you do have the ability to do it without specific ownership because you have proof that the copyright is expired? Then letters of intent, if you have people who actually are committed to working on your project if you get it greenlit. So those are some of the things that kind of go on behind those 10 to 15 pages for them to be accurate. So why go through all of this work? Why not just write a script and go shoot it? Well, you need money and you need to make money back or else you're out of this industry very quickly. I could go on and on about the dangers of doing this. I have certainly lived through it of the, hey, I think this is a great idea, but I don't have a solid business plan behind it. It does not end well. If you have a good business plan, it still may not end well, but you at least have much better odds. And part of the process of doing a business analysis helps you decide internally, should I keep going down this path? One, do I care about it enough? Does it tie into my personal motivations and inspirations enough for me to actually put forth all of this work to do the planning, then, actually make a film and distribute it? Is it worth it to me? Do I want to see this through? And is it likely a responsible use of resources in terms of eyeballs who will see it? Financial return, certainly if you're taking other people's money, that's important because you want to make sure it's got a good chance of a return for them if they're viewing this as an investment. So you need to do the work before you dive in and get yourself in over your head.